Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti-yoga Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Charine Visheshwar Shunyavadi Pshakare Chakarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravani Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Advaita Acarya Saptami Mahotsava Ki Jaya Hare Krishna. So we are celebrating the appearance day of Sri Advaita Acarya, one of the members of the Panchatattva. Later we will see the 6th chapter of Adi Lila, where his glories are described. Before now we will sing a song by Locana Thakura. We have the translation, so we know what we are doing. All glories to the all-merciful Advaita Acarya, whose roaring plea made Gaura descend to this world. Sitanath, the Lord of Sita, is an ocean of compassion and distributes freely pure love of God. By his own mellow of pure love, he induced the hero of Raja Krishna to come.
Господарят на Сита е океан от състрадание и разпространява свободно чистата любов към Бога. С собствената си чиста любов той накара героя на Враджа Кришна да се появи.
Whoever receives his mercy and his kind glance, that person is infused with pure love of God and sings the divine qualities of Lord Chaitanya.
Който получи неговата милост и добрият му поглед, тази личност се изпълни с чиста любов към Бога и възпява всякакви качества на Бог Chaitanya.
Anyone who seeks shelter at his feet acquires the great wealth of Gaura Prema, pure love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Всеки, който търси под собствените му нозе, придобива великото богатство на Gaura Prema, чистата любов към Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Locana says, why did I not worship such an ocean of mercy? By not worshipping him, I have brought a thunderbolt upon my head.
Защо не обожавах този океан от милост? Като не го обожавах, аз се навляках гръмотевица върху главата.
Okay, so later we will elaborate on the glories of Advaita Acarya. So if we see now the song, the Bengali, just a few notes. Practically, yes, at the end of each line, it's not exactly as it is written. The Bengalis, they drop generally the last A. And even the A becomes an O. So therefore, you have at the end Doyamoy. It looks like Doyamoy, but it's Doyamoy. So the A with a line on top, that's an A. That's a real A. That's the only real A. Yes. So therefore it's Doyamoy and Hoy, the next one, and then Sagara becomes Sagar. And Nagar, and then the Chaya becomes Chai, not Choi because it's a long A, Chai and Gai. And then we have Sharan and Mahadan. And actually the Bajilun, the last N is actually also not pronounced, it's Bajilun. Yeah. So Karuna Sagar, Prema Dasa Sita Nasa Karuna Sagar, Prema Dasa Sita Nasa Karuna Sagar, Gara Prema Rase Aila Gajera Nagar, 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 Jaya 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 Doyamoy, Hare Karuna Kori Kripa Dite Chai, 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 Prema Veshe Janmo Chaitanya Bhumai, 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 Jaya Jaya Advaita Acarya Doyamoy, Hare Gauravani, Jaya Jaya Advaita Acarya Doyamoy, Hare Sahara Charan Meva Laila Sharan, 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 Se Janna Saila Gaura Prema Mahatam, 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 Jaya Jaya Gauravani Kemena Bhajilo, Premada Gauravani Kemena Bhajilo, Premada Gauravani Prabhupada ki jai. Saraswati Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtottara Shata Sri Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakura ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinata Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Sama Veta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Sri Advaita Acharya Mahotsava ki jai. Gaura Premananda. All glories to the ascended devotees. All glories to the ascended devotees. All glories to the ascended devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Gauranga. Hare Krishna. All right. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the beginning, the Mangalacharana, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he presents different verses glorifying first for Chaitanya, then for Nityananda, and then Advaita, and Panchatattva, the devotees.
Началото на Чайтанья Чаритамрита Кришнадас Госвами описва няколко стиха, в които той възхвалява Чайтанья, Бхакти-yoga, Advaita Acharya.
So in the following chapters, he elaborates on these verses.
И в следващите глави той подробно обяснява тези стихове.
So he first has 4 chapters about Lord Chaitanya, and then 2 chapters about Nityananda and 1 chapter about Advaita Acharya. And he has also 2 verses he composed to glorify and give the identity, the tattva of Advaita Acharya. So I'll just recite Sanskrit and we'll see the translation. The first one is Mahavishnu Jagat Karta Mayaya Yak Srijat Yadaha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishvaraha. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya, 6 form.
Бог Адвайта Acharya, инкарнация на Махавишну, чиято основна функция е да създава космическия свят чрез действията на Майя.
Then the next verse, Advaitam Harinadvaita Acharyam Bhaktis Shansanat Bhaktavataram Ishantam Advaita Acharyam Ashraye. Because he is none different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cut of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him.
Тъй като той не се различава от Хари, върховния Бог, той е наричан Адвайта. И тъй като той пропагандира култа на правилността, той е наричан Ачаря. Той е Богът и инкарнацията на предания на Бога. Затова аз трябва да се определя.
So we'll go through the chapter and I will summarize. So these are the first, in the beginning, the first verses. Actually, if we go back to first 1, usually Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he presents a Sanskrit verse. The rest is always Bengali, generally, unless there's a quote from scripture.
И се върна в началото на главата, първият текст. Обикновено първият текст от главите на Чайтанья Чаритамрита написан на санскрит, а останалото е на бенгали, освен ако няма цитат от част.
So the first verse is like an kind of invocation summary sometimes of what is presented in the chapter.
И първият текст е или призоваване, или пък е обобщение от това, което ще последва в главата.
So in this case, the first verse is Vandetang Srimad Advaita Acharyam Adbhuta Cheshtitam Yasya prasadad agyopi tatsvarupam nirupayet. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Advaita Acarya, whose activities are all wonderful. By his mercy, even a foolish person can describe his characteristics.
Отдавам смирените си почитания на Шри Адвайта Ачаря, чието действия са неговата милост, дори глупавият човек може да опише неговите качества.
So then come the glorifications of Panchatattva and the devotees, and then the identity, the tattva. We have recited these two first verses. So this goes until verse 14, and Prabhupada gives a purport to the 12th verse, where he says, he is an Acharya, Advaita Acharya, a teacher, an incarnation for a particular occasion. That's the supply agent or ingredient in material nature.
This is
12, I think.
И в коментара към 12 текст.
It's just one sentence. So he is an Acharya, a teacher.
Учител.
An incarnation for a particular occasion. A supply agent or ingredient in material nature. So then we have verses 13 to 15, and in the purport to 15, I'll have always only a few sentences. So let's first see the verse 13 to 15, which describes his role in connection to the material world, material nature.
И в текстове 13 и 14, които ще прочетем, се описва неговата роля във връзка с материалното творение.
Yeah, Advaita Acharya is special case. He's an incarnation and avatar of different aspects. There's Sadashiva, there's Mahavishnu, there's the Bhakta avatar when he comes. So we'll see. Yeah. Yes. So here it is described his connection to Maya, to the material energy. So just as the external energy consists of two parts, the efficient cause nimitta and the material cause upadana, Maya being the efficient cause and pradana the material cause, so Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, assumes two forms to create the material world with the efficient and material causes.
Също както външната енергия се състои от две части, действената причина нимитта и материалната причина упадана, Мая, която е действената причина и прадана материалната причина, така и Бог Вишну, върховната божествена личност, приема две форми, за да сътвори материалния свят с действени и материални причини.
So if you are interested in the details, you can read the purport, which is a long purport in several pages, all describing about these efficient cause and the immediate cause, the remote cause, like that.
Ако се интересувате от подробности, може да прочетете коментара, който в няколко страници се обяснява различните видове причини, непосредствена и непосредствена.
I just take one sentence from this purport. Factually, the Supreme Absolute Spirit Soul is the cause of every kind of manifestation. And he is always complete, both as the energy and as the energetic. So just one sentence we can think about. What does that mean? Maybe we can, we'll probably remember Om Purnam Adat Purnamidam. Sometimes one wonders, what does it mean? Something complete comes from the complete. It's still complete, although, so for the material conditioned mind, this is contradictory. It doesn't make sense.
Помните, стиховата Ишуса Нишатка е Пурнама Дам, но за материално много трудно да си представи как от нещо цялостно ще излезе друго цялостно и двете остават цялостно.
Many times this question comes, how is it that, material world which is defective, right? How is it complete? But in itself, it's complete. It's like a big machine, which is very perfectly designed. Defects included. Yes, because the atheistic argument against God is, just look at this creation. It's so imperfect in so many ways. Especially the body we have. Now we have this Omicron going around. So, and if you catch it, then the thing becomes diseased and becomes uncomfortable. So that's not very perfect. Right? Then you get a toothache. I mean, why is it not designed in such a way that teeth don't get any ache? They just, continue all life perfectly, right? Without any caries, nothing. And you can eat perfectly well. That would be complete. Otherwise, it's not complete. Anyway, so if you think about it, you can give hundreds and thousands of arguments why the material world is imperfect. So what is the answer to defend theism against this? Because the atheists will argue like this, if God is supposedly all perfect, right? And all powerful and all good. So why does he make something so defective? Which just causes suffering and hardship and right? So what are we going to say? He has an answer. Well, even if you follow his order, still the material world remains imperfect. In that just by following his order, you don't eradicate your toothache. Or worse, cancer. Or for that reason, COVID. There are many devotees who follow his order and they die of COVID. Well, that's another consideration. Anyway, so we should know that this is the argument. And of course, Krishna says, yeah, you're right. I made it like that. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosha anudarshanam. It's a dosha. He knows. I did it. I put some defect, not just one. It's vyadi. I mean, there's actually 4 defects. But the vyadi, the disease defect, has many, many, many varieties. It's Dukhalayam. It's not Sukhalayam. We try to make it Sukhalayam. It's futile. It's like, you can try, we try. Science tries that, especially medical science. Right? That's the goal. It will never be achieved. So, but why? Because this is not our home. We should be reminded, get out, don't stay here. But we want to stay here and make it Purnam. Anyway, so this is just a little bit of about one sentence in this long purport. But yes, the energy and the energetic, they are complete because it's Krishna's design.
енергията и източникът са съвършени, защото Кришна го направи.
Oh, I just realized I have a few more quotes from this purport. One is important. Prabhupada speaks about this atheist Kapila. And it's another, just 2 sentences. And this is exactly what material science thinks. He said, according to Kapila, the atheist, material nature is eternal and all-powerful. Originally, there's no spirit, and matter has no cause. Matter itself is the chief cause of everything. It is the all-pervading cause of all causes. That's material philosophy. Like Carl Sagan, this famous astronomer in the 60s, 70s, he said something practically exactly the same. That the universe, it's in itself is the cause of everything, and it's eternal, so there's no need for any God that creates the universe. And from logic point of view, it makes sense. In one sense. Because we say that this Govinda, he is Sarva Karana Karanam, and he's Anna. He doesn't have a cause, and he is the cause of all causes, and he is eternal. So why do we need this Govinda? We just say matter is eternal, he doesn't have any cause, and it's the cause of all causes. Ishvara Pararamaya instead of Krishna. So that's what they think. Now, well, why not? We can read this because it's Prabhupada's purport. And he's quoting Baladeva Vidyabhushana, where he starts to quote that sometimes the material scientist suggests that trees grow from the earth automatically. Without the assistance from a gardener. It's true, right? There's so many, well, many times trees just grow. Many other things grow. You don't have to do anything. Because that is a tendency of matter. So Baladeva Vidyabhushana is elaborating on the Kapila philosophy, the atheistic philosophy. So these people, also consider that intuition of living creatures from birth to be material. Yeah, so the idea is all these things just happen automatically. But such material tendencies as bodily intuition cannot be accepted as independent. For they suggest the existence of a spirit soul within the body. Actually, neither the tree nor any other body of a living creature has any tendency or intuition. The tendency and intuition exist because the soul is present within the body. And in this connection, the example of the car and driver may be given very profitably. The car has a tendency to turn right and left. Right? Yeah. Or can go straight also or back. But one cannot say that the car itself, as matter, turns right and left without the direction of the driver. Yeah, material car has neither tendencies nor intuitions independent of the intentions of the driver within the car.
Материалната кола няма нито намерение, нито интуиция, независимо от желанието на шофьора.
And the same principle applies for the automatic growth of trees in the forest.
Същия принцип е приложим за автоматичния растеж на дърветата в гората.
The growth takes place because the soul's presence within the tree.
Растежът се случва поради наличието на душата в дървото.
And that's very easy to understand. I mean, where you are here also, there's lots of dead trees.
Лесно да разберем, тук може да видим много мъртви дървета.
They become gray, grayish, whitish, and they just, without any leaves, just stand there, and that's it. You can, every year you can go, they're the same, there's no growth. Rather, what will happen in time, they will fall apart. Right? It's just a matter of time. Some trees take a little longer, like anything else, like any building also. We try to build it in such a way that it will last forever. I mean, in the CODT life, they really thought hard how to make it last as long as possible. So generally, you use reinforced concrete with steel poles inside, not steel, iron. Generally, when they supply it, it's already oxidized. Right? It's already brown. Even if it comes not yet oxidized, you just leave it out for a few days, it already starts to oxidize. And that means in course of time, iron will become powder. It will take some time. So therefore, in Mayapur, they don't use just iron poles. They used stainless steel rods for all the pillars, for the superstructure. It was millions of dollars just for this. So this will last a long time. But not eternally. Because the tendency of matter is to disintegrate, it's not to grow. So then he gives the example of a cow that produces milk by eating grass or straw. So now, if the argument is that matter is the cause, then we may say that any animal can eat grass and produce milk, right? Why not a bull? That would be very practical. We have half bull, half cow, but only half of them give milk and the others are just eating. And with just pus, stool and urine, it's good, but it's not the same as getting milk. It's not very profitable. So therefore he says here, it cannot be said that straw in connection with a particular species produces milk. It cannot be said. Yeah, you were astonished why he says cannot. Right? So why not? Because the conclusion is there is a superior management. So Krishna says, okay, cow can produce milk, maybe a goat, not the same type, but not any kind of animal by eating grass will produce milk. So it's higher superior management determining who produces what. All right, so Advaita Acarya is managing the material world. So we go to the verses 16 to 27, where this is described. So in 16 it says, Lord Vishnu himself is the efficient nimitta cause of the material world, and Narayan in the form of Sri Advaita is the material cause upadana.
Vishnu самият е действената нimitta причина за материалния свят, Нараяна във формата на Шри Адвайта е материалната причина.
Lord Vishnu, in his efficient aspect with nimitta, glances over the material energy, and Sri Advaita, as the material cause, creates the material world.
Lord Vishnu в своя аспект на действието поглежда материалната енергия, Шри Адвайта като материална причина създава материалната.
In the form of Advaita, he infuses the material ingredients with creative energy. Therefore, Advaita is the original cause of creation. As he had formerly created all the universes, now he descended to introduce the path of Bhakti. Then 28, he delivered all living beings by offering the gift of Krishna Bhakti. He explains Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in the light of devotional service. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that although Sri Advaita Prabhu is an incarnation of Vishnu, for the welfare of the conditioned souls, he manifested himself as a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And through all his activities, he showed himself to be an eternal servitor. Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda also manifested the same principle, although they will also belong to the category of Vishnu. So this will be later on we'll have more about this, the principal aspect about Panchatattva and the members of the Panchatattva, especially these three, although they are actually the Supreme Personality of God and in different aspects, they come as devotees. So Advaita Acarya is specially intended to teach the conditioned souls about devotional service. The word Acharya means teacher. The special function of such a teacher is to make people Krishna conscious. A bona fide teacher following in the footsteps of Advaita Acarya has no other business than to spread the principles of Krishna consciousness all over the world. The real qualification of an Acharya is that he presents himself as a servant of the Supreme. Then we have 29 to 33. He is the spiritual master of all devotees and is the most revered personality in the world. By combination of these two names, his name is Advaita Acarya.
И комбинацията от тези имена, това е наречен Advaita Acarya.
Then it describes for 34 to 39 how he worshipped Krishna with tulsi leaves and Ganges water.
И в текстове 34 до 39 се обяснява как той обожава Кришна с tulsi листенца и ганга.
Called with a loud voice.
И с силен глас той викал.
And thus Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on earth accompanied by his personal associates.
И призовал Бог Чайтания да се появи с личните си придружители тук.
So then the next verses describe the relationship between Lord Chaitanya and Advaita Acarya. Because Advaita Acarya is a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, so he's the godbrother of Ishvara Puri.
Advaita Acarya е ученик на Madhavendra Puri, така е духовен брат на Ishvara Puri.
And Ishvara Puri, he is the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya, so therefore it says that Lord Chaitanya obeys him, respecting him on the same level as his spiritual master.
Тъй като Ishvara Puri е духовният учител на Бог Чайтания винаги се учинява и учител от Advaita Acarya като свой гуру.
To maintain the proper etiquette for the principles of religion, Lord Chaitanya bows down at the lotus feet of Sri Advaita Acarya with reverential prayers and devotion.
За да демонстрира правилният етикет на религията, Бог Чайтания с преданост и молитви дава почит на Адвайта Acarya.
But Sri Advaita Acarya considers Lord Chaitanya his master. And he thinks of himself as a servant of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, what to do? So, Prabhupada says in the purport that the super excellence of devotional service, he quotes different scriptures which describe how different devotees experience transcendental bliss by serving the Lord. So this will be the subject of the next verses, how this conception of being a servant is actually the cause of transcendental bliss. So in 43 it says Advaita Acarya forgets himself in the joy of that conception of being a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he teaches all living entities, you are servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Той забравя себе си в радостта на идеята да е слуга и той учи всички живи същества. Вие сте слуги на Шри Чайтания Махапрабху.
So in the purport, Prabhupada says that the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so ecstatic that even the Lord himself plays the part of a devotee.
Последното това казва, трансценденталното предано служение на Върховния е толкова екстатично, че дори самият той приема ролята на свой предан.
Forgetting himself to be the Supreme, he personally teaches the whole world how to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Забравяйки, че е Върховният, той лично учи целия свят как да се отдава предано служение на Върховната Божествена личност.
So then the next verses, 44 to 52, it describes how Advaita Acarya feels about this. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami will describe how also other devotees and great personalities are feeling in that sense. So he begins to say that the conception of servitude to Sri Krishna generates such an ocean of joy in the soul that even the joy of oneness with the Absolute, if multiplied 10 million times, could not compare to a drop of it.
Дори ако се умножи по 10 милиона пъти, не може да се сравни с една капка от него.
So this is perfect hyperbole. This is called exaggerated speech to make a point. So you imagine an ocean. I mean, the Black Sea is not an ocean, really, right? But imagine it's multiplied 10 million times. If you have some idea about the Pacific Ocean, quite big. So 10 million times that. It's not even a drop of the ocean of Bhakti. Now he says, Advaita Acarya says, Nityananda and I are servants of Lord Chaitanya. Nowhere else is there such joy as that which is tasted in this emotion of servitude. All the associates of Lord Krishna, such as Brahma, Shiva, Narada, Shuka, and Sanatan Kumar, are very pleased in the sentiment of servitude. Sri Nityananda, the wandering mendicant, is the foremost of all the associates of Lord Chaitanya. He becomes mad in the ecstasy of service to Lord Chaitanya. Srivas, Haridas, Ramdas, Gadada, Murari, Mukunda, Chandrasekhar, and Bhakreshwara are all glorious and are all learned scholars. But the sentiment of servitude to Lord Chaitanya makes them mad in ecstasy.
Srivas, Haridas, Ramadas, Gadadhar, Murari, Mukunda, Chandrasekhar и Bhakreshwara. С всички славни и учени, велики учени, но чувството на служение към Бог Чайтания ги потудява от екстаз.
Thus they dance, sing and laugh like madmen, and they instruct everyone. Just be loving servants of Lord Chaitanya. Sri Advaita Acarya thinks Lord Chaitanya considers me his spiritual master, yet I feel myself to be only his servant. In 53, love for Krishna has this one unique effect. It imbues superiors, equals, and inferiors with the spirit of service to Lord Krishna. So in the purport, Prabhupada says towards the end, the service attitude of the devotees who play the parts of superiors of the Lord is very difficult to understand. But it can be very plainly understood in connection with the super excellence of their particular service to Lord Krishna. A vivid example is the service of Mother Yashoda to Krishna, which is distinct. In the feature of Narayan, the Lord can accept services only from his associates who play parts in which they are equal to or less than him. But in the feature of Lord Krishna, he accepts service very plainly from his fathers, teachers, and other elders who are his superiors, as well as from his equals and his subordinates. This is very wonderful. Then in the next verses, from 54 to 75, he gives evidence about other, in scripture, so many other devotees and personalities who engage in the Lord's service.
И в текста на 54-79 се дават още примери за велики личности, които са заети в служение на Бога.
So he mentions Nanda and friends like Sri Dama.
Той споменава Нанда и приятелите на Кришна.
Then the gopis and Srimati Radharani and the queens of Dwaraka. And then in 76 to 81, he also mentions Baladeva. And Prabhupada says in the purport, it is the singularity of the Supreme Lord that everyone in the spiritual sky thinks himself a servitor of the Lord. According to social convention, one may be superior to Krishna, but factually everyone engages in his service.
Някой може да взема повисша позиция от Кришна, но всъщност всички считат себе си за слуги на Бога.
Then 82 to 85, all the emotions, whether those of father, mother, teacher or friend, are full of sentiments of servitude. That is the nature of love of Krishna.
Всички емоции, независимо дали са от бащата, майката, учителя или приятеля, са изпълнени с чувство на служене. Това е крилото на любовта към Кришна.
That same Lord Krishna has descended as Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone, therefore, is his servant.
Същия Бог Кришна се появява като Бог Чайтания, върховната божествена личност. За това всички са негови слуги.
Some accept him, whereas others do not. Yet everyone is his servant.
Някои го приемат, а други не. И въпреки това всички са негови слуги.
One who does not accept him, however, will be ruined by his sinful activities.
Който не го приема, обаче ще бъде ще пропадне заради греховните си дейности.
In the purport, Prabhupada says, when one is forgetful of his constitutional position, he appears in the position of the Lord of material nature.
Когато човек забрави за своята изначална позиция, той се опитва да се наслаждава на материалните свят.
Even at that time, he remains a servant of the Supreme Lord, but in an unqualified or contaminated state.
Дори тогава той остава слуга на Бог, но в нечисто състояние.
So in this connection, Prabhupada many times he explains that even though one may think of oneself as being the Lord, as he says here, Ishwaroham, this mentality, actually if you analyze, everybody is serving something or somebody. Because it's the constitutional position of the living entity. You cannot avoid it. And then he mentions that if you don't have a family, a wife or children to serve, then you get a dog. And then you see the multi-millionaire big CEO going 5 o'clock in the morning with the dog because the dog wants to pee. Right? Yeah, here's a dog on the leash. I mean, he's controlling the dog, he thinks. But the dog is controlling him. Because you see the people going like this when the dog runs, going after, and then he stops at a lamp post and raises his leg, and the guy is waiting, Are you finished? Not yet? Okay.
Който отива, дърпа господаря. И после спира и до стълба И така той го чака.
That's reality. We can observe it every day.
Може да го видим.
You can know where to go. Some parks can see people, you know. So it's in Japa sometimes in some place early in the morning. First thing you see somebody with a dog. Everybody else is sleeping. Sunday morning. Where? I mean Sunday morning, you know, you want to, and there you go with a dog. Because you're a servant. Do you like it or not? But, as it says here, you remain a servant, but in an unqualified or contaminated state. So, that's not very good. Better to voluntarily accept the real service, which is to the Supreme, of course, not to a dog, to God, not to dog. I mean, we're always on the dog, you know, poor dog, but that's what people choose to have, as a, you know, as their master. Anyway, so now Advaita Acarya, he will continue to express how he feels. These are the last verses in the chapter, actually, 86 to 97. I'm a servant of Lord Chaitanya, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. I'm a servant of Lord Chaitanya and a servant of his servants. Saying this, Advaita Prabhu dances and loudly sings. Then at the next moment he quietly sits down. The source of the sentiment of servitude is indeed Lord Balaram. The plenary expansions who follow him are all influenced by that ecstasy. Therefore, in another chapter it says, I think the previous one, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arasava Britya. The only Ishvara really is Krishna, everybody else is his servant. Yes, so, and because Balaram is the first expansion, he is the origin of this service attitude. So then we have a few more verses. Lord Sankarshan, who is one of his incarnations, always considers himself a devotee. Another of his incarnations, Lakshman, who is very beautiful and opulent, always serves Lord Ram. Vishnu, who lies on the causal ocean, Mahavishnu, is an incarnation of Lord Sankarshan, and accordingly the emotion of being a devotee is always present in his heart. Advaita Acarya is a separate expansion of him. He always engages in devotional service with his thoughts, words, and actions. By his words he declares, I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Thus, with his mind, he always thinks, I am his devotee. With his body, he worshipped the Lord by offering the Ganges water and tulsi leaves. And by preaching devotional service, he delivered the entire universe. Sri Shashankarshan, who holds all the planets on his head, expands himself in different bodies to render service to Lord Krishna.
Видите си, той се разширява в различни тела, за да отдава служение на Кришна.
These are all incarnations of Lord Krishna, yet we always find that they act as devotees.
Всички те са инкарнации на Бог Кришна и въпреки това виждаме, че те винаги действат като преданни.
And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in different incarnations. But his appearance in the role of a devotee is more beneficial to the conditioned souls than the other incarnations with all their opulence.
Но неговото появяване в ролята на предан е по-благотворно за души, отколкото другите инкарнации с всичките изпълнения.
Then, from verses 98 to 102, the superior position of Krishna is described. And then we have 103 to 111, the sweetness. It says the sweetness of Lord Krishna is not to be tasted by those who consider themselves equal to Krishna.
Сладостта на Бог Кришна не може да бъде изпитана от тези, които се смятат за равни на Кришна.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Because we all want to taste sweetness.
Всички искаме да
What to do?
It's
unavoidable.
Неизбежно.
The nature of even Krishna. So what can we do? We are part and parcel. So yeah, sweetness means in one sense rasa. You know, it's juicy. It has to not dry. It has to be juicy and tasty. Yes. And madhu, because it's like honey. You know, madhurya rasa means it's a sweet. There's a sweet taste. Otherwise, who is interested? Now the point is, it comes now, but this is to be tasted only through the sentiment of servitude. You can't taste Krishna and his sweetness without being servant. So what to speak of others, even Lord Krishna himself becomes thirsty to taste his own sweetness. That's inconceivable. He tries to taste his own sweetness, but he cannot. Without accepting the emotions of a devotee. And that's Lord Chaitanya. 112 to 119. The original Bhakta avatar is Sankarshan. Sri Advaita is counted among such incarnations. Yes, now we will hear about the final texts are about the glories of Advaita Acarya. The glories of Sri Advaita Acarya are boundless. Because his sincere vibrations brought about Lord Chaitanya's descent upon this earth. He liberated the universe by preaching Sankirtan. Thus, the people of the world received the treasure of love of Godhead through the mercy of Sri Advaita. Who can describe the unlimited glories of Advaita Acarya? I write here as much as I have known from great authorities. I offer my obeisances 10 million times to the lotus feet of Sri Advaita Acarya. Please do not take offense of this. So why? Because your glories are fathomless as millions of oceans and seas.
каза, не приемай оскърбление от това, защото твоята слава е всъщност безгранична, необятна тук.
Speaking of its measure is a great offense indeed.
И всъщност да се говори за измерването на океана е голямо оскърбление.
Yeah, he said 10 million times, so 10 million is not very much. Even if you say 1,000 million, billion, it's still not sufficient. A trillion is good enough? No? And you can go on and on. You can look up. They have words for the bigger the number gets. At one point it becomes a zillion. There's no more because it's just unlimited. So that's actually the glories of Advaita Acarya are unlimited. So he finishes the chapter by saying, all glories to Sri Advaita Acarya, all glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the superior Lord Nityananda. Sri Advaita Acarya ki Jai. Comments? Questions? Maybe. No breakfast, no problem. Very good. Please enlighten us.
In the verse where it says you cannot taste Krishna's sweetness unless if you feel equal.
Yeah.
But we see it in the rasa, actually the rasa, they feel equal.
Well, yes and no at the same time. Because what about the other rasa where they are superior? That's worse. But that's the how you can say the inconceivable quality that although you may feel equal or superior, still you're feeling as a devotee, as a servant.
И това е невъобразимото настроение, че дори да вземаш повече позиция и равен, винаги се чувстваш като правилно.
Yeah, we heard about the Prabhupada talked about Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and other superiors in his lila. They are superior, but they have the sentiment of service.
И Прабхупад обясни това в коментара, като даде принос на Нанда Махарадж и Йашода, които са негови висши, възрастни, но въпреки това те се считат за негови слуги.
And some of the friends, they may be considered equal, but then also there are friends who are superiors because they're a little older and they have a little bit of Vatsalya rasa in their rasa. It's a mix. They feel like protecting Krishna.
Някои от неговите приятели са равни на него, но някои са по-възрастни и затова те имат и малко тази раса. Родителство, те искат да закриват.
Right. Krishna Das has a rasa of protecting Radha. Equal but not exactly because he's older. And you know, but even by doing this, actually he's serving him. So anyway, that's my take on that. Yeah, as we have heard, everybody is actually servant, and though those who have some blame, who are not in the contaminated, unqualified state of forgetfulness, everybody considers himself a servant, beginning with Balaram. And he's the older brother. But then, now this is of course another topic, then Krishna, he's the supreme, but not exactly. Yeah, the sweetness he wants to taste, so how to do that? Then he has to adopt the mentality, the humor, how you can say, yes, of Srimati Radharani. Because he is actually I'm a servant. So, anyway, that's another topic. That, Krishna is Madan Mohan. He is so sweet and, well, how to describe it, so attractive in so many ways that even Cupid cannot resist. What is it? Brahma Samhita, millions of Cupids. Kandava Koti. It's Koti. Koti is a million. He's more attractive than millions. It's another hyperbole. You could say a billion, doesn't matter. Krishna is even more attractive than trillions and zillions of Cupids. So, it appears there's nobody who is superior to that. If you can attract zillions of Cupids, then no match for you. But then Srimati Radharani is called Madan Mohan Mohini. She is attracting and bewitching the attractor of Cupid. So, how is that possible? Well, because Krishna likes it. Yes. Everything depends on taste. Coming back to the seashore. So he has created this situation where he can become subordinate to the devotee because he likes it. And he displays this same sentiment not only with Srimati, with the gopis, with his friends, with his mother and father, and he can become easily the devotee of his devotee, and he likes him. Which proves this whole point here, that this sentiment of servitude, or being a servant or serving, is generates unlimited bliss. So that is described also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think second or third chapter, where the internal reasons for Lord Chaitanya's appearance is explained. So the Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he quotes the thinking of Narayan. That Narayan is like the king, everybody awe and reverence and serving and hymns and all these things. And he thinks, yeah, it's nice, I like it, but not really. Actually, I like better if some friend climbs on my shoulder, or one of my girlfriends, they insult me, you rascal. Or my mother comes with a stick and I run away and she binds me. So I become a subordinate. I actually like it much more. So this is inconceivable, because in the material world this never happens. It's just the opposite. You are supposed to be a servant that's undesirable. I want to be in charge. Yeah, chef. Not just CEO, Chief Executive Officer. Top. Nobody above. And to be like a servant somewhere, he comes in and serves the coffee and whatever, low class. That's the material world. That's a reflection. So what is the highest in the spiritual world becomes the lowest here. So now we have to learn how to follow in the footsteps of Advaita Acarya and all these other great personalities who are really, I'm a servant. It's wonderful. I like it. So, if they can do it, well, there's hope. We can also learn it. He will teach us. He's the prime teacher for that. So today we can meditate. Maybe have a little more step towards becoming a servant. All right. So, what else? Yes. No. You. Speak up, so it has to be recorded.
What satisfied the most Advaita Acarya?
What?
What satisfied the most Advaita Acarya?
To become a servant of Lord Chaitanya, sure. It's like we always, how can I satisfy the Guru or the Lord or Krishna or Lord Chaitanya or Advaita? I mean, generally the answer is if you become a pure devotee, then that's the best thing you can do. How can one set it? Because that's the goal. We should want to become devotees, servants. Because then everything comes. I mean, then it's like complete. Like here we hear so many times how those who have that, how we can say, sentiment, really, not just imaginary, they actually experience the greatest happiness. Yeah, so even looking from that angle, what is the goal of life? Anandamayo Vyasat, to enjoy. That's the goal of life. There's no other goal. Let's look at it from a selfish point of view. We all want to enjoy, that's all. Now, how to do that? That's the problem. You look at the world, everybody has the same goal. They want to live in peace, and they just want to enjoy. That's all. But how to get there? I mean, look what they do. You think by invading another country you may get there? Right. Or going to the moon, flying. I mean, I don't have anything else. There's billionaires. They don't know what to do, how to spend the money to enjoy. So what else can I do? I have all kinds of cars. I have all kinds of women. I have all the food I want. So now what? Well, get on a spaceship and fly around, for 15 minutes, and let's see whether this gives the final enjoyment.
Чули какво направи, всички възможни всички жени и така нататък. Нека да се качи на космически кораб, да обикновено лата за 15 минути. Може би това ще е крайното на света.
Yeah. I mean, what's next? Well, they try all kinds of stuff. Always looking for what? That I can draw some taste.
Винаги нещо да извлека някакво преживяване, вкусно.
And of course, then when it becomes completely perverted, then it takes forms that we don't even want to talk about. People do really crazy stuff, and they think, I mean, the goal is still to enjoy. And because it's completely in Tamaguna and Rajaguna, it just produces misery. That's all. Krishna explains that we don't listen. And if you do that, then ultimately you have to admit there's no other, it's a reality. You just suffer. But Maya is very clever. She will cover you, and you will feel, actually, even the suffering, you have to suffer in order to appreciate the next enjoyment. So anyway, so because the goal is that, yes, to enjoy, but how to do it is in connection as a servant of Krishna. Yeah, still we don't believe it. So then we have to suffer a little more. That's how it works. Therefore it's Purnam, it's perfect arrangement. I mean, if you think about it, the goal is to enjoy. We try to enjoy in the wrong way. Now Krishna knows this. He's very intelligent. So he designs the playground in such a way that you try, but then you are reminded, actually, no, it's not the real thing. So where is the real thing? And then he comes from time to time himself, or he sends somebody like Advaita Acarya to remind us, this is the real thing. Those who are Bhagyavan, a little bit fortunate, they may accept. And if not, then just go on in the cycle until you get tired, and then maybe next time somebody comes, no, this is the real thing. Okay, let's see. Let's try. If not, you can go around and around because it's perfect. It's internal. Don't worry. It's not eternal condemnation, not one life. It goes on eternally around and around and around. The Ferris wheel. Sometimes you're up, then you go down, but you go up again. So here I am on the top of the world. So, all right. What else? Yes, please.
I have a question regarding the Ram Lila described in Srimad Bhagavatam. That when the Lord Ramachandra was on the planet, there was no diseases, not too hot, not too cold, and also if the people don't want it, they don't leave the body.
Okay.
And in the purport, Prabhupada said that similar situation can be even on the earth if the Lord Ram's name is chanted purely. Because there is no difference between Lord Ram and his name, and this is the way how the spiritual world can come on the earth. And how can we understand this? And also we see Prabhupada was here also, but was a little different. It was a different situation. And what is our hope? Also we put effort to improve the things now in the material world, but what is our chance to achieve this pure level and take the whole world and become Krishna conscious?
What is the chance? Well, the chance is there, but may not be so easy as it sounds. I mean, I was told, at least, by one of the early devotees, like we had these little cards, chant Hare Krishna and be happy, or chant Hare Krishna and your life will be sublime. So the same kind of question, we say this and we chant, but maybe I don't feel really happy and my life is not really so sublime, so how can this happen? How to understand? So, Prabhupada said, yes, we say like that, but it's not so easy. I mean, sometimes you, yes, for preaching, to inspire people, you propose or offer these kinds of goals and benedictions, and it looks like, oh, I just have to do this and then, I get the result, but it's not so easy.
И повярването ми може да окружаваме хората, като им казваме, просто го направи и ще станеш щастлив и може да не изглежда, че е много просто и лесно, но не е толкова.
But doesn't mean it's hopeless.
Това не означава, че е безнадежно.
But even chanting, therefore we see, even after chanting after 20, 30, 40, 50 years or more, we still maybe don't feel that I am experiencing the 8 transformations which should come, right? We chant purely.
И дори след като сме мъдрували 20, 30, 40, 50 години, все още може да не изпитваме 8-те трансформации, които трябва да се случат, ако мъдруваме чисто.
There may be sometimes, even dancing is considered anubhava, so, feeling some happiness, but we may not feel that we are really getting there, as it is described.
Дори танцът е считан за анубхава и възпитанство, но може да виждаме или да не изпитваме това, което е написано точно.
Of course, if we read carefully, we know what's the reason. The reason is there's offense in chanting.
Разбира се, това обяснено. Причината е, че извършва оскърбление при мъдруване.
After all, there are 10 of them, no? Not just one of them.
Това не е до 10.
So to the degree that we are committing one or more than one or whatever, to that degree, we don't get the result.
И степента, в която извършваме едно или повече оскърбление, ние не постигаме резултат.
And Ramachandra, what is it, Treta Yuga, I think? Yes. So very different atmosphere and civilization.
И по времето на Бог Рамачандра, Трета Юга е била много различна атмосферата и цивилизацията.
Still 75% Dharma is there.
Все още Дharma е 75%.
Well, it's just a number, but it means from Satya, that's the next one after Satya Yuga. So it's practically almost like perfect, as perfect as it can be in the material world. So, if you, would chant without any offenses and whatever, then it's possible. If everybody does that, the whole, humanity, then you get a situation like in Treta Yuga.
But
even 10% of the population. So, whether one is enough, I'm not sure. Anyways, I try to give some explanation, but obviously it's not so easy as it sounds. But still, everybody in their own lives, we can, I think, say that as to the degree that we follow the process, we experience, as it is described in Nectar of Devotion, first of all, relief from, miserable condition.
И всички ние, до степента, в която следваме процеса, ще изпитваме резултата и първото нещо е намаляват страданията.
So Sukham Kartamavya, Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, if you follow this process, you will become joyful. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma.
Krishna казва, ако следваме процеса, ще постигнем радост, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma.
And if somebody says, well, I do all this in so many years, but I'm still miserable, that means you don't do it right.
И ако някой каже, аз го правя толкова години и все още страдам, това означава, че не го правя както трябва.
Right? Like any treatment.
Както всяко лечение.
Somebody has a certain disease, The doctor knows what is the cause. You know, you are overeating each day by having, you know, a big cake with white sugar. Then, you know, this and this and this problem comes. So if you want to get rid of this, you have to do this, this and this. Now, if you do it, you will see the result very quickly. But if you say, well, you know, maybe not the whole cake, can I have half the cake? So, you know, to the degree that you don't really apply this because you don't like it, then you have a problem. Maybe a little less, but still, it's problematic.
Не го прилагаме, защото не ни харесва, ще продължаваме да имаме проблем. Може би по-малко, но все още ще има.
So yeah, we have the treatment, but to apply everything is like a little difficult.
На нас лечението ни е дадено, да го приложим изцяло, не е.
In Spanish we can have a play of words.
Испански може да не играем думи.
Quiero ser santo, pero no tanto. I want to be a saint, but not so much. No, yeah, I like to be a saintly person, but not 100%. Is 50 good enough? Quiero ser santo, pero no tanto. Tanto. No tanto. Tanto, not so much. So, much more I cannot say. It's possible, all this is possible, but I mean, Kali-yoga is difficult. But individually, I think, you know, we can say that. We experience, anybody who follows the process as much as possible will experience a change in their lives. Like anyone who follows the treatment, even sometimes partially, will find some improvement. Maybe you don't become completely healthy because you don't do it, but some relief will be there. To the degree you do, then you get, it's natural. It's like, you know, even in science you have that. To a certain degree, then you get a certain result. Even Krishna says it. To the degree you, then I reciprocate. It's normal. As you treat me, I treat you. If you insult me, I insult you. If you praise me, I praise you. Anyway. All right. So, anything else? Stop here, I think. No breakfast, no problem. But still, time is going on at 9:30 almost. So thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Advaita Acarya ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Gauravani ki jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you.